Right. Oh, I just wanted to start by saying thank you very much for inviting me to your convention. It's been fabulous. It's been absolutely wonderful. And you actually have cleaned me out. I've only got one book to read from now. I've sold them all. If anyone wants to get a signed copy from me, I've been authorised by Big Finish to take names and addresses. So if you pay me after this, I will get them sent to you, a postage and packing, which will be free, and I will sign them and send them direct to you. Because, yeah, I was just thinking, I'll bring 9 books down. It's a small convention. They must be poor. We'll get 9 books down. Then I said, oh, Paul, give me 3 dozen. And I've sold, what, 34. And that's quite staggering. That's the best convention I've ever done. Good. Well, yes, definitely. So, what would you like to do now? Shall I do a reading?
Could start off with a reading.
Shall I do another reading?
Everybody
my only book I've got. Has anyone got the books here?
In the car,
oh, in the car. Okay. What do I? I'll just do this one with the convention, the commentary. They were ushered into a tiny green room dominated by a large window, beyond which Mervyn could see the recording suite. There were dinky little bowls of chocolates and crisps and bottled water by the gallon, arranged neatly on low tables. The edges of the room were lined with squashy, squared-off chairs in delicate shades of corpse grey with just a hint of asphyxiation purple. Languishing on one of the chairs was a hippie-ish woman flicking idly through a newspaper. She was wearing a frilly shirt, a brown Hessian waistcoat and faded jeans with a swirly, vaguely Chinese pattern stitched to them, running from thigh to ankle. Her round face was swamped by a pair of huge spectacles which had fallen out of fashion in the late 80s, and wild yellow hair black at the roots with authentic nicotine highlights. She was late 40s, dressed like she was 20 and looked almost 60. She was surrounded by rubbish. Sugar sachets, showbiz magazines, a half-eaten sandwich in its plastic shell. Her bag had disgorged most of its contents onto the floor, vomiting lipsticks, pens, books, 2 obscure historical romances by an author Mervyn had never heard of, and a dog-eared script. He tried to gathered round her feet as if she were building a nest. Mervyn remembered that Samantha Carberry never so much arrived in a room as crash-landed. It was said you could tell how she was, how her day had been, and whether she was seeing anyone by simply inspecting the floor around her ankles and reading it like tea leaves. As Mervyn and Brian entered, she looked up, gave a girlish smile, and the years fell off her face. "Oh gosh, chaps, lovely to see you. Haven't seen you in ages." Her voice was floaty, distant, like talking to someone through a pane of glass. Brian gushed fulsomely as actors do. "Samantha, darling, you look marvellous. My gracious, you haven't changed a bit. How do you do it?" "Hello, Samantha. Lovely to see you again," said Mervyn. Mervyn and Brian dutifully stood with their cheeks out so Samantha could graze them with her lips. On Vixens from the Void, Samantha Carberry played Elysia, sadistic henchperson, sidekick and dog's body to the Princess Arcadia. Mervyn remembered that she looked particularly good in studded leather. Elysia was an interesting character for most of the series run, but in this particular episode her part had been unusually meaty. "This is very exciting," she gesturing around the green room, "but I'm not absolutely certain what I have to do here. I mean, what does one do in a commentary?" Behind the nibbles and bottled water there were 2 big chrome cylinders. Being a writer, Mervyn was a natural scavenger and made a beeline for anything that was available for free. Coffee was his main weakness. He grabbed a polystyrene cup, pressed the button on the top, and the nozzle gushed. Hot coffee splattered onto his cup, on the table and onto his hand. Sucking his fingers, he looked over at Samantha. "Didn't Robert or Trevor explain anything to you?" "Well, yes, the thin one did try to explain it." She absent-mindedly twirled a lock of her hair round her little finger, like a distracted child. "But I don't quite understand what they're driving at. I mean, aren't we talking about this episode in front of an audience like we do in the conventions?" "It's not quite like that," said Mervyn gently. "What happens is we watch the episode in the studio, and while we watch it, we talk about our memories, impressions, anecdotes, anything that comes to mind. Robert and Trevor record us, and they put our comments on the DVD so people can hear us while they watch it." "But won't the people who buy the DVD get all distracted with us chuntering away all the time?" Mervyn grinned. "Don't worry, Samantha, our chuntering is optional. They can watch the episode without the commentary, and if they want to hear us talk about it, they can press a button and hear it with us." "Oh, I see," Samantha said slowly and cautiously. Mervyn wasn't 100% certain she did see, but she was too polite to admit that his explanation failed, and he was too polite to raise the possibility that she was too stupid to understand his explanation. When they were filming the series, she always managed to take every piece of information and lose it somewhere inside her pretty head. It was a small miracle she managed to turn up to the studio on time in costume and makeup with the lines at her fingertips. "Where's Marcus?" said Brian suddenly to the room in general. "Didn't he get in here ahead of us?" "Is Marcus here?" Samantha sat up pertly like a sixth former waiting for a particularly dishy supply teacher who entered the classroom. "How lovely, where is he?" "Ah," Brian stuffed his forward, "he must be in his dressing room." "Oh, have we dressing rooms?" Samantha clutched at her bag ready to leave. Robert looked uncomfortable. Not exactly." Mervyn realised that Brian, the mischievous old bugger, had waited for Robert's entrance to mention Marcus's preferential treatment in front of Samantha. Brian piled on the embarrassment. "Don't worry, I imagine yours is right next to Marcus's, Sam." "It's just that," Robert blustered, "the thing is, there's normally lots of shows on and they take a lot of the available dressing rooms, and there weren't that many rooms free in the first place, so as a precedent, we don't actually supply rooms, so we're pretty much in and out in a few hours." Robert sank slowly up to his neck. "However, as Marcus's agent asked specifically, and as there was one going begging, we didn't think anyone would particularly—" "Oh, I think there's a problem. Trevor's gesturing me through the glass." Robert vanished with a great relief to join Trevor, who hadn't gestured to anyone.
I don't know. Any questions?
Any injured yesterday? Yes.
So, what's one again? So, you're dating Nick O'Brien? Are you?
Am I?
God,
Caroline Ford?
Caroline Ford. I'm dating Caroline Ford.
oh, right.
Somebody.
How on earth does that work?
How does it work?
How do you date someone?
Well, a lady and a man who love each other very much.
How does it work dating someone from a show you're fanatic about?
It's perfectly fine actually, because we met each other in something which isn't Doctor Who related. She was invited along to a radio sitcom that I'd written because one of the actors, she knew one of the actors in the cast, and she really liked it. And then she, a couple of years later, she picked up a copy of The Kingmaker as she was in it, and then she really liked that too. And she wanted to write a comedy sitcom script, and she looked around to see who she'd really like to work with. And she remembered my sitcom, and she remembered my script, and she planted me at the BBC, and we started working together professionally on a sitcom pilot that went nowhere like so many thousands of other pilots. But, you know, we had a friendship, and a couple of years later that friendship became something else. But it hasn't been that freaky, really. We've had conversations about Doctor Who, and I do sometimes let slip of geeky facts and things like that.
Except for the ones you get wrong.
Oh yeah, it was the Twin Dilemma. She was going to do the commentary for the Twin Dilemma, and I just said, well, I think Anthony Stevens started writing it, and then he died, and then Eric Saywin took over. And then she got back from the commentary, she goes, I just said that in a commentary, and that was wrong, he's not dead at all. You're not even a very good fan, are you? So it does sometimes slip out. We were watching the new series, The Poison Sky, the Sontarans, and she said, why are their Sontarans so small? I said, no, your Sontarans were too big. And in fact, yeah, your Sontarans were too big. They might be a bit small, but Sarah Jane's Sontarans were just about the right size. So you just get into this discussion about the size of Sontarans relative, and then you start to back away from them. I don't, for a record, think Nicholas Sontarans are too big. They're just right. We don't talk about Doctor Who a lot, but occasionally it does. Yeah, we go to conventions together. I do my Prince to Live impression and walk 2 paces behind her. It's kind of weird sometimes. I was asked, the first convention we went to together, we had to do the celebrity things, the celebrity lunch things, and the organisers asked me to not have the celebrity dinner with Nicola because in the quote, which we enjoy the quote, was, I was depressing her numbers. Because the fans like to think that Nicola is theirs for the day. And having Nicola's partner on the same table, it takes away that sense of ownership. Because, you know, that's her man. So I was depressing her numbers, so I was kindly asked to sort of not do
Go
this.
away.
Go away. Live with the fantasy that Nicola is there. It's like that kind of thing. I always think it's like that when tabloids do the headline going, sorry fellas, Jennifer Aniston's engaged. As if some guy on a building site is going to go, oh, I was really hoping to get together Jennifer Aniston, but now she's engaged. It's like a kind of, sorry fellas, you're out of luck, you fat git on the building site. You can't make Jennifer Aniston, but she's engaged. So it's that kind of thing. Oh, you know, I might have a chance if her boyfriend's not. It's that kind of logic to it. Yeah, we work professionally too. We did Perry and the Piscon Paradox, and we had a long conversations about the making of that. Does anyone here heard Perry and the Piscon Paradox?
Yeah. Excellent.
It's one of the best things I've written, and I think it's a huge in part to Nicola, because a lot of the things came from Nicola. So what are we going to do with Perry, and what she wanted to do with Perry, and how she imagined Perry to be, because she hated that Iohannos.
It was written so well that once you got to the end of it and knew what was going on, you then had to go back and then restart it to pick up the bits that you missed the first time.
Well, that's exactly what I said yesterday. I do love to give people value for money. I don't want a piece of disposable tap on your shelf. And I think if you're spending 13 quid on a Big Finish CD, you must at least want to listen to it again once more. And you know, you really, I put my heart on as saying, you know, this is just not a waste of time for you. I know there's a certain amount of CDs out there go, yeah, that'll do. And you know there's a that'll do, and I get annoyed by that that'll do's as much as anyone, whether it's a comic strip or an audio or a video or anything like that. I just hate that. And that's, you know, that's a measure of good writing. I don't want to do the that'll do's. And people like Rob Shearman, they raise the game, and Johnny Morris, and they're not satisfied with that kind of A to B stuff. But Nicola, she wrote this huge character outline for Perry when she got the part, because she really is a serious actress, and she wanted to do the thing. And she gave it to John Nathan Turner. It said reams of what she thought Perry was, and John Nathan Turner said, well, that's lovely. You just keep that in your head for the next couple of years and we'll be fine. So that was just pushed to one side. But in that character study, she said that she thought that Peter Davison's doctor reminded her of her dead father, and that's why she was so drawn to him. And that's why it's such a profound shock when she changed it to Colin Baker. And I kind of tweeted that and said, okay, the Peter Davison doctor reminded her of an old boyfriend. So the whole nature of it changed slightly. So so Perry was attached to Peter Davison's doctor because he was a bit like an old boyfriend, which is why the character of the boyfriend is called Davy Silverman, which is a bit like Peter Davison, that kind of thing. And also there's Nico Blair in the story, which is now known as Colin Baker. I like to bring in the real world as much as I can, because the chaos of the making of season 23, if you just bring that actually into the drama, people can relate to it a lot more. Because we all know what happened with season 23 and when everything got cancelled and reinstated. So there is that in there. You tap into real life when you're looking for your drama, and I think it makes sense, the bit at the end. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do, because I started, it hooked you in. The more you listened to it, it hooked you in. And then as soon as you got to the end of it and it all fell into place, you then had to then go back and think, you know, of course, and then you realise how clever you were in constructing it in the first place.
Well, you know, if you like The Kingmaker, if you like Omega, then I think Perry and the Piscon Paradox is better than those two. It's my best audio for Big Finish. I was very proud of that. And that's doing a huge part to Nicola. We did a naughty thing with Big Finish, actually, because I hadn't written for Big Finish for a while, and Nicola and I were an item. We've been an item not that long, and it wasn't actually wildly known, because we're not public people, we're quite private people. We just, you know, we just got on with having a relationship. We didn't tell people, only people who were relevant to our lives, our families and things. So Nicola went up to Dave Richards and goes, my boyfriend would quite like to write a Big Finish. And he must get that kind of thing all the time. My brother, he thinks he can do a Doctor Who. It's my mate down the pub. He'd be really good at doing. So you just wanted to see David Richardson's face, sort of like the blood drain from it. But as my boyfriend's never found it, that wouldn't be a problem, really, would it? And he goes, no, that wouldn't be a problem. Don't talk. But you can imagine some sort of bald-headed idiot come in and go, yeah, I'm Nicola Bryant's boyfriend. I can write Doctor Who for her. Just to see the face of David. Yeah. So yeah, it's, as I say, we Doctor Who impinges on our lives, but it doesn't dominate our lives. That's a big full answer for you. And the bit about how it happens, I'll talk to you about that later.
The birds and the bees, yeah. Would you find that Big Finish, one of the nice things about it is it can take characters like Perry, who, to be fair, she was hired to run around, look pretty, and get into trouble, and actually turn it into a proper character. Because when I first started watching Perry, she was pretty much tottering around, breasts up to her cheeks, and that was what she was there for. But
that's all I needed.
And you got it. Well done.
No. It doesn't usually to say that, because I was sitting on the sofa in 1985 with my first girlfriend watching The Two Doctors, and she was just pulling it to pieces, and she said, look at that girl on there. But stay there. No, she's all right. She's fine.
But actually, if you watched her, you could see that she was trying hard not to be like that.
Yeah.
Finish. Colin Baker, a fantastic doctor, suffered from crack scripts for some of his. I never felt he got a decent.
I think the whole story of the moment the series, the classic series finished and things and fans started to take over, it's always been that rectifying the sins of the past. Because the minute they started on the New Adventures, now I'm not a big fan of the New Adventures books, but they were addressing faults, like when Mel left, the nature of the Doctor's character. They built on it, they developed it. They were addressing what they thought were problems from the production team, and let's not just single out Perry. There were problems with Ace, and there's problems with almost everything, because it's the nature of an adventure serial. It just carries on, and there's no depth to it. There's no depth to Stephen, there's no depth to Dodo, and like Steve Lyon's book Salvation, addressing Dodo and addressing her entry into the TARDIS, giving all the companions depth, and it's a double-edged sword when fans take over things, because they can become obsessed by little things, witness the restoration teams taking out of TARDIS noises and putting in things that they think, and that can get irritating. But on the other hand, they really feel passionately, they think, this was wrong, I thought it was wrong, and I can address this, and I can give these people more of a character. You're right, it started off with the Sixth Doctor, and it went on to Perry, and they're developing the Tegan, Adric, and Nyssa team now. And there's not a part of Doctor that they don't want to do better. I mean, the Paul McGann, great actor, weak opener for the Doctor, but they, with
turned into a fantastic Doctor.
With Storm Warning, absolutely, and with the books. Let's not leave the books alone. They the thing about the irony with when fans take over, they bring with it an air of professionalism, which it's a paradox, but it's very interesting. Because if you're a professional, there were lots of professionals on Doctor Who, but professional just meant earning money. So they came onto the show, they wrote their script, they earned their money, and they pissed off again. They probably wrote it in a week, some of the episodes. I mean, that's not exaggeration, that's not just dismissing it, it's just another job, and that's what profession means. It's a derivation of professional. But fans, they bring to it what we think of as professional in making a better job. Russell T Davies is a fan, Stephen Moffat is a fan. They really think hard about where Doctor Who is. And if you think about the other proposals by professionals, when Doctor was coming back, for instance, there was talk of the Doctor just being a human and having the police box in his back garden. That was one proposal that was seriously looked at by the BBC. These are professional proposals, but they're professional proposals by people who aren't into Doctor Who and just see it as another job, another thing to take and just make into something else. It's like when you have a professional remake of Noddy and you just stick a load of CGI and a bunch of new characters. Professional means a lot of things. But the best kind of professional is when people are really, really passionate and can do the job get hold of something.
But for all Ross's faults, he actually did a fantastic job of bringing it back the way we wanted it.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like with Battlestar Galactica, professionals who happen to be really into the subject matter, the source material, who really want to do something with the issues that it throws up. We all know what happens when people just want to take something and reboot it and do something with it. You know, we've all seen the Lost in Space movie, which basically the only thing they left with it was the theme tune. And that's just done by people who are just going to turn up for work and you know, what can we do with this franchise? We'll stick the guy from Friends in it and make it about him. That's a professional. I mean, the Thunderbirds movie as well. These are done by professionals. So a professional piece of work doesn't quite mean what it means in every sense. What was the question?
Anybody else? More questions?
What authors inspire you? I mean, when you first wanted to be a writer, what was there anything inspire you? Any authors inspired you?
Terence Diggs.
Uncle Terence, yeah.
Uncle Terence. Douglas Adams for the sort of depth of the imagination. But Terence, and I think it's very important for me as a writer because it was never pretentious, but it was never simplistic. I'm reading the Autumn Invasion with my 8-year-old son now because I want to get him reading. He's a little bit slow on the reading, but we're getting into it. And the economy of language, but the vocabulary is still good. You know, when I was 6, I knew what a renegade was. You know, I knew what the word exile meant. And it raised my reading age to when I was about 6 to I had a reading age of 11 when I was about 6. And this is down to devouring those Doctor Who books. And I never understand writers who are not interested in the economy of language, because the book is all about economy of language. I like thrillers. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Deaver. And if you can't, if a book is not a page turner, then I don't understand what the purpose of it. I understand there are meaty, literal books, but I read a lot of science fiction books and things like that, and there was just too many words on a sentence and too many words in a paragraph, and there's no need for it. It's kind of like a diarrhea of the keyboard. You just can't stop typing, and you just you kill your babies. I went through Geek Tragedy again as I cut so much out, and I cut, and I spent weeks on sentences just trying to cut down the sentences to the shortest possible length because I've said it. I've said all I need to say. I don't need 3 adjectives in this sentence. You get the point. This person is ugly. I get the point. I don't have to have 3 adjectives to say he's ugly. I'll just say he's ugly. And then just carry on, because what you're reading the book for is the story. And you're colouring the story with your description. And reading those books, they were children's books, but they were the best children's books to read. So I wouldn't advocate reading them as a 40-year-old and a 45-year-old. You know, you move on. But the economy of language is what I took away from that. And Douglas, as a script writer, also had an economy of language because he admired P.G. Wodehouse and he admired Kurt Vonnegut. And both of them have an economy of language. Which is not to say they can't put in a good turn of phrase, but that's all they put in. They don't labour the point and hammer it home and have pages and pages of description. They have a good thing to say and they say it and they move on. And that's why Douglas Adams is so good. He worries about the joke and he pares it down and he pares it down. He's made his point and he moves on to the next thing. And you can just see that in the radio series and in the books. That's why it took so long to write it, because he cares about every page. You know, anyone could write something, there's many jokes in but 3 times the length. But those books are quite short and they're very economical. They're practically like scripts because they're written like Kurt Vonnegut. So yeah, Terence Diggs for me.
Is that maybe why you became a script writer? Because there are confinements within script writing. You've got to get it done in a certain amount of time. Whereas if you were writing a novel, you can do a novel that big if you wanted to. Whereas as radio and TV, you've got to keep it concise and clear and fast.
I think Robert Holmes said something like, I remember this being a quote from Robert Holmes. I can't attribute it to any time or any particular magazine, but he said, you know, a writer should not say, I want to write X or I want to write Y. You should say, I want to write Doctor Who or I want to write horror books. A writer just say, I want to write. And I've always just wanted to write. Ever since I was 5, I was writing, you know, crude little science fiction stories in my exercise book. I started off in script because I heard that Weekending was hiring in London. And I thought that was the only place I knew you could actually get paid to write. I could have been a completely different writer. I was writing a children's book at the time, which I was getting nowhere with it. And then I heard about Weekending, and I sent some scripts off to London, and the producer said, these are good, you should come to the meetings. And I was a teacher in Coventry, so I just left my job, and I went to London, got a job in a toy shop, and started going to the meetings in Weekending. So I became a satirical writer because, by default, because that was where the money was, that was where the in television was. I could have been a completely different writer. If someone had knocked my door and said, I'm going to pay you £2,000 if you write a science fiction novel, I'd be a science fiction novelist. But I am just a writer. And I know what interests me now, but I could have done anything.
But maybe that being concise made you a better script writer.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Whereas because you don't write a novel that big when it can be that big, because you don't overwrite it. It suits your style script writing.
I think having a sense of Asperger's, I am Asperger's, I can get bored very easily. Therefore, I will not write anything that bores me. So there is an argument to that conciseness. But also, Terence Dicks too, but there's also comedy. And in comedy, there is economy. If you write a topical gag for Have I Got News for You, and Loose Ends, and Headlines, and Weekending, and I've written for all of those shows, you know that if you write a topical gag, 30 words isn't funny, 20 words is funny. I don't know why that is. You know where to put a word in a sentence to make people laugh. The structure is just so defined, the rhythm is there. You can't put superfluous words into a joke. So I think I admire Terence Dicks, but I think I kept learning that lesson all the way through. When I started writing comedy, you don't write more than a page and a half for a sketch. For a Dead Ringer sketch, the response starts here, where people recognise the voices they're doing and the idea of the sketch, and this is funny, and such, and Alan Bennett's talking about Thora knifing someone, and everyone's having fun. But the audience response goes like that, because it wants to get the idea. So you can write a 4-page sketch, but it wouldn't get in. 3-page maybe, 2-page okay. Nothing much more than a 2-page, unless you really believe in what you're doing. So, you know, I think, as I said, Terence I admired for his economy. That helped me in writing comedy, and I've been economic with my things ever since. Yeah.
You said you had Asperger's. How do you cope with it every day?
How do I cope with it every day?
Yeah.
I just be myself. I learned quite recently that I had Asperger's. A lot of things made sense. Nicola did a lot of research because I did some very odd things in my life, and she started to notice the odd things that I was doing. So I worked very hard. The main problem the day-to-day thing with Asperger's is concentrating on people and asking questions and being stuck in your own head and interacting with people. I'm actually quite good at interacting with people. I'm not big Asperger's. I'm on a colour wheel. I'm not too bad. I will talk obsessively about what I'm interested in, which is the sake of Asperger's, but I will find it very hard to talk about what other people are interested in because I'm stuck in my head. So I concentrate very hard on what people are saying to me, even though my brain is telling me to drift off all the time. So I have to control it all the time. And when I'm talking to someone, I have to control it. And I do it even now. You're not listening to me anymore, are you? You're off somewhere else. Nicola will say, and I go, yeah, I've gone. I'm back again now.
Are you affected by the sounds around you, or
yes.
when you're too close to?
Yes, sound around me is very, very, background noise as well.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Mine
gets pulled away all the time.
I know because I'm one too.
All right.
I also want to be a writer.
Well, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
The good thing for me is Asperger's do have obsessions, and my obsession is writing to the exclusion of all others, really, which can get a bit dangerous in places because, you make a decision between writing and something, a romantic meal, or writing, and I pick writing. So you pull yourself out of this what you are, and you go, okay, let's go out, let's do something. But if you're left, then I'd quite happily sit in an empty room for weeks on end, mooching and writing and mooching and writing. And so you have to pull yourself into the world. And I love the world, and I can talk quite freely here in front of a bunch of people. But you let go. You take the foot off the pedal, and you can just glide quite easily. So you just got to be aware of what you are and what you do. And when I found out when Nicola diagnosed me, and I realised, knowing that gave me a lot of purpose and a lot of confidence. Actually, gone, oh, that's it. That's why I did that thing when I was 7. That's why I did that thing last month when I destroyed the garden.
But you should also have a Nicola there to help.
Well, Nicola is the complete opposite. She has a razor-sharp mind and a razor-sharp intellect, which is odd because, she's playing a Doctor Who companion which is all show and bimbo. She is fiercely intelligent, and her brain works like she can grab onto the tiniest thing. And she can have 6 thoughts in her head, and I've got half of one. So the actual fact that we are such opposites in terms of brain actually helps me. Sometimes it just, the thing is about Asperger's is my brain can just wear out by about 5 o'clock, and sometimes I get tired out by Nicola's the force of her personality. But I know what she does is good for me because it keeps me focused, because she tells me to do something and I think about it for about 10 seconds and it drips out of my head. It doesn't come back in until she reminds me again 3 weeks later saying, you had to apply for that thing, didn't you? Oh yes, I did, didn't I? And if I didn't have someone like that to actually sort of be sharp, do that, then I'd be sitting here without any trousers on. No, I can't have trousers on.
That would have produced an interesting convention.
Well, a new convention, but everywhere. But I say I can overplay the Asperger's. I'm not on that. I'm not extreme Asperger's. I'm probably about 60% there. It's just I'm aware of that I have things, and when I become aware of it, I sometimes become more it. Weirdly enough, but mostly I control it. Good question.
Do you find you've talked about how you get bored very easily, but also sometimes you can be very intensely obsessed, and does that the juxtaposition of both of them, sometimes that tunnel vision can it take over with the writing, and you said to the exclusion of all others, so I imagine that sometimes it's your own little world very vibrantly and very concisely.
Well, I think the old phrase was in school in the 70s was daydreamers, and there were a lot of daydreamers in school, but they didn't get diagnosed as Asperger's sufferers until quite recently. It's very difficult to get diagnosed when you're my age to be an Asperger's sufferer. Yes, it's very important. I mean, I tend to try and bring it into my obsession, which is very useful because when someone's talking to me about something, I can say, well, maybe I could use this for writing. Maybe I can use this person, or not use in a usy way, but just go, oh, someone's talking to me about, about Poland. I'll focus on what this person is telling me about Poland because maybe I'll write, maybe Mervyn Goes to Poland in another book. So I'll try and kid my brain to stay interested in what they're telling me. And interested is the wrong word to use because it implies a sense of willful ignorance. It's not arrogance, it's not ignorance, it is my brain that does this. I think Gary Newman has it, Asperger's, and he says, I just thought I was an arrogant bastard until I got diagnosed with it. It makes you look like you're an arrogant bastard. It makes you look like you're not interested in people. I am very interested in people, and I can do beautiful, generous things for people. When my brain is telling me to, I can search across the world for the right present for someone. I can help people all the time. I can help people in this way. But certain parts of the brain just get shut up and goes, well, did you buy me that car? Oh, no, I didn't. Yes, but I did actually help your career immeasurably because I've just spent 3 months telling people how wonderful you are. Because, I do like helping people. I helped India get a MasterChef. We were just talking about, I got India a voiceover agent, which is Jan Raven's voiceover agent. I got India onto Dead Ringers, and I helped get Big Finish onto BBC 7, and which is now Radio 4 Extra. So I'm always thinking about ways to help people and getting people. I got Johnny Morris on Dead Ringers, and he wrote the last ever Dead Ringers sketch with David Tennant. So I'm always thinking, how can I help my friends all the time? So I'm very generous, but sometimes I will just be appallingly ungenerous in my actions because it's not occurring to my brain to do these things. So it's an interesting contradiction. Any other questions?
Still got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Kingmaker, was it always so obvious, the joke of the Chris Eccleston soundbite, or was it something you got added after?
It was completely spontaneous. As I wrote in my emails to Gary Russell, I said I'd like the cliche of Richard III is the old crook back with the Laurence Olivier diction. He was actually a young man. He was 30 when he died, and he was born in the north, as he was Duke of York. He was born in the north. So I'd like he's a young soldier, and I don't know if he talked in a northern accent, but I'd like a northern accent because that's what I see him as now. He's a young action man. I mean, the business with the hump and stuff is nonsense. He might have had a slight disfigurement, but he was overplayed. So he's a young, 30-year-old man, bred as a soldier, and he's from the north. I kind of saw him as Sean Bean. And I think when couldn't get Sean Bean, obviously, but what we got with Stephen Beckett, is it Stephen Beckett? That's his name? This is Stephen Beckett from The Bill. Very good actor. That's pretty damn near to what you're getting with Sean Bean. You've got that kind of thing. I didn't know about the Christopher Eccleston thing. I didn't even know you weren't meant to mention the new series in Big Finish Audios. No one told me the rules. So what you got in there wasn't being cheeky, it was just me just doing a joke. So the fact he sounded like Chris Eccleston is a complete instance in my mind. Whether Gary cast him for that, I don't know, but it's in my mind. I put a fantastic in there because I knew he'd be speaking in northern accent, and I would like a joke, a little Eccleston joke, but I had no way of knowing that Steve would sound so like Christopher Eccleston. And actually, I sort of would get annoyed at it because I would, it sounds. And you got someone sound like Tom Baker, sounds like Chris Eccleston. It didn't particularly jump out at me as something that's, that adds a lot to the script. A lot of people like to point it out. It might distract from the script. No, I didn't.
So where next? What's in that fountain next?
Well, I have a sitcom pilot with an independent company. I always got projects on the go with my writing partner. I've just spent a lot of time working on Private Eye's 50th birthday because I do a lot of work for Private Eye. And I'm currently writing my 4th and 5th Mervynstone novels, which is how I like to do it. There's no pressure, there's not being commissioned or anything. I just thought I'd be ready.
Just in case they decide to watch.
Just because as we back, if the sales are good and they want some more, they did ask for an audio, and I've been writing that kind of like absent-mindedly to myself too. So I've kind of got a lot of projects I've started and want to finish. So there's a Mervynstone audio called I Dismember the 80s, which I'd like to finish. And there's 2 Mervynstone books called Signing for the Death, and which is about. Shall I tell you what it's? I like telling people ideas and plots. Mervynstone goes to a comic shop to do a signing, and there's a guy who turns up called. So Mervynstone to explain to people who haven't even looked at books. He's a script editor on an old science fiction show which died in the 80s, and all he does is go to comic shops and does conventions and things like that. So he's doing this signing in a comic shop, and this guy called George Lane turns up and starts signing the DVD covers that Mervyn's signing. Now George Lane doesn't exist. George Lane is a pseudonym that Mervyn invented because he wrote this episode of Vixens from the Void and hated it so much he put a pseudonym, George Lane, on it. And this guy's turned up, he's called himself George Lane, and he's signing the DVD. So it's like if Terence Dicks was sitting in a comic shop and Robin Bland turned up and insisted on signing covers of the Brave Morgans. So that's the premise, and that's how it starts. And George Lane dies about half an hour later. and Mervyn starts tracking down other people. So he finds another fake author called Peter Feeble, who's is signing in another comic shop, and another author called Tony Tripe. and they're all pseudonyms of Mervyn. And he just doesn't know where they're going, and they're all dying. So that's Signing for the Death. And the other one I'm writing is a serial killer who kills action figures.
Is it Barry?
This is basically Messiah, my serial killer novel, but he steals people's priceless action figures, rips them out of the box, and sends the bits back to the owner.
It is Barry.
I've got one of those, so he tends to blow them up though.
Right. So Mervyn is employed to stop this guy before he kills again. So it's kind of like a serial killer story, but with action figures. And the title, I'm very pleased with the title, it's called 10 Little Figures. People know that title, you give that resonance there. So I think Signing for the Death is what I'm going to finish first, but 10 Little Figures is kind of there bubbling away. There's 10,000 words written of it, and it's in a laptop somewhere. So those are all the projects that I'm doing. I might write a Dark Shadows, and I don't know where I'm going to go, to be honest. Whenever the email plink happens is where I go next, because I'm a writer for hire in a lot of ways, and jobs just fall onto the letterbox, especially when you're a jobbing writer who does scripts for TV, radio, and comedy. There was a puppet show that just emailed me yesterday. That could be my life for the next 3 months. You never know. You never know. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you're writing your novels, do you partially edit yourself, or do you just, as you're going along, or do you just finish it and then go in?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because I'm trying to write a novel at the moment, and I'm finding I'm putting a lot of crap in. So, how do you go about it? Do you just finish it first and then go? That'll go.
No, I don't. I think being the Asperger's, I could not just write a novel raw in its entirety. I'd have to find something which I'm really pleased with. For Signing for the Death, for the moment, I've written a prologue which I'm really, really happy with. And if I wasn't really, really happy with, I probably wouldn't have the incentive to finish the rest of the book. So I write chunks that I'm really, really happy with, and then I'll write other bits, and then I'll revise them. I will revise, and I will cut, but everything I'm writing is always a good idea at the time. And I always think, oh yeah, that's really good. And then I will go back. But mostly I think the plot dictates what I leave in and what I take out. With Geek Tragedy, there was a huge subplot which I did not, I'm just going to get this out because I'm just making this too big, too unwieldy. So I took the subplot out, and that was quite near to finishing it. So you just got to be very objective all the way through, and not worry that anything's actually word perfect, but just know your own mind. I think just know your own mind, and if you say it, that's crap, then just put a line through it. It's difficult to say what I do. As I say, I started off writing Geek Tragedy just saying, oh, I'll write a murder mystery, that'll be fun. And as I went along, I go, well, I'm not that kind of writer. I want to write the best murder mystery I can possibly do. Therefore, my murderer became the victim. I changed lots of names. I took things out. I put things in. It started to become a book that really just interested me, rather than a book that I thought might interest someone else, but I'm not particularly interested in at the moment. So I kept writing and writing until I was interested enough to go, oh, I'll read this book all the way through, and I'd read it again if I wanted to. DVD extras include murder. I had a great murder. You know, there's a guy, I knew how it's going to work. There's a guy in a sealed DVD studio. He picks up a bottle of water. He unscrews the bottle. He drinks it. He dies down dead from poisoning. And all the other bottles are sealed, and that's the only one with poison in it. Now, the guy who's dying is a notorious atheist, like a guy like a Richard Dawkins character, who's you know, or Christopher Hitchens, who goes on, and
An aggressive.
an aggressive atheist, exactly. So originally this Christian splinter group sees it as some kind of miracle, like God turned the water into wine, why couldn't he have turned water into poison? And Mervin's task is to find out how it happened, and I knew how it happened, and that was great. But I had the murder, but I didn't have the story, so I kind of stopped a third of the way in, and I'm thinking, where am I going to go? And then I realised what I was writing after a while. I was writing the Da Vinci Code for atheists.
Hopefully not that bad.
No. So I realised where I could go next, because if I was writing the Da Vinci Code for atheists, I could move around a bit, I could change locations, because it could be a runaround. I knew that Mervyn would have to get in trouble with the police. I knew that he actually had to get framed for something. So it gave a huge... Once I realised what the book was, then it became easier. So the narrative helped. I explained to Mark, there are two piles in my head. There's two in trays in my head. And there's a huge pile of things that might be good, fun things for Mervyn to do. I was explaining. And there's a much, much smaller pile here. Because what would make a good novel from end to end? And there were there's lots of ideas. For example, in the third book, it is Mervyn Stone's crappy old science fiction series is being remade for the 21st century. That's an obvious book to do, but there's more to do after that. That's just an amusing notion. Where's your story? Where's your murder? Where's your narrative? There's two things going along. And the thing you see on the surface is what I've just explained to you. That's the funny bit. That's the amusing thing that can happen. But what's going on beneath what you're reading is the plot, the engine, the murder that gets revealed when you go, oh, the book is actually about this. It's not about Mervyn getting into trouble in Cornwall and losing his pants and his victims from the boy being rewritten badly. It's not about that. It's about the murdering. It's about the murder and it's about the reveal. So you've got these two things going along, and then the bit at the bottom is what you've got to sort out as well. And if you know where you're going, I wrote Cursing on Sequels in 2 months because I knew where I was going. I knew about television, I knew how horrible television was, and I knew about the murder plot, and I knew how it would encircle the story. And it was very, very quick. Peak Tragedy took years because I wasn't particularly knew where I was going. I didn't really care about where I was going. I just wanted to write a murder mystery which was amusing in the science fiction dimension. And when I started revising my expectations, then I started throwing huge chunks out. What I'm basically saying is each book is unique. Does that help at all? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Does it? Any other?
Want to do another reading?
Oh yeah. This is a character called Mick, which I like very much. This is a policewoman of Mervyn's acquaintance. All this cloak and dagger stuff is very exciting, Mervyn said. They were in a motorway cafe that was made entirely of moulded green plastic. But Mervyn was nervous. He pulled sugar sachets out of the pot on the table and started absent-mindedly tearing them open, pouring the contents onto a little pile on the table. So, is this the place where you coppers meet all your narks and grasses and stool pigeons? He asked, sipping the scalding cup of brown water that for some reason was given to him when he asked for coffee. Mick gave him a dispassionate glare. No, this is the place where we coppers can afford to eat. Mick was not what Mervyn expected. For a start, she was a woman. Secondly, she was an incredibly tall woman. Mervyn just about came up to her shoulder. Everything about her was big. Hands, arms, shoulders. Her head was enormous, and her huge slab-like features jutted out in all directions. She looked like a woman wearing a Disneyland costume of herself. She was looking at him with a cold, appraising gaze. Easter Island statues looked jollier. Her mouth was a thin line hiding under a large nose, and one of her eyes was a bit off-beam, which made her look slightly crazed. Or was just the fact she was slightly crazed that made her look slightly crazed? She had scrappy bottle blonde hair that sprouted out of her head like charred crop stubble. If Glenn Close had ever been accidentally treated to gamma radiation and was able to turn into her own version of the Incredible Hulk, she would become Mick. He wondered fleetingly if she used to be a man, but no. There wouldn't have been enough anaesthetic in the world to put her to sleep for an operation like that. So, Mick. Is it Mick? Short for Michaela. Michaela's a shit name, so I'm Mick. I won't change my name because my mum gave it me, and she's dead now. She fell out of a van. So in her memory I keep it, even though it's shit. Well, Mick, I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm going to skip this bit, because this reveals the murder from book 1. Mervyn felt the meeting with this odd woman had reached the end of its natural life and stood up. Well, nice to meet you, Mick. I'm sorry to have wasted your time, so I'll bid you good day. I'll go and put our trays away. Sit down. Mervyn sat. She leaned forward, covering the table. Do you know I live my life by the codes of the Vixens? I didn't know there were any codes. Oh yes, there are codes. There are always codes. Treat men like shit. Use the power of your body to get your own way and keep the empire intact. She pulled open her police regulation blouse to reveal a sparkly bra. I made it myself. Obviously it's not much use under my blouse, but I wear my whole costume whenever I'm off duty. And you know why? Why? Because I am a vixen. Oh hell. I am a vixen, and you are my god. You created me, formed me with your brain. I have sworn allegiance to you in my mind every day since I was 15. I am now 38, and my loyalty to you remains intact. My body is yours to command. And there's not many old overweight geezers like you can say that. Yes. She plonked a file on the table. Strictly speaking, we're not allowed to discuss ongoing cases with members of the public, let alone with potential suspects who are in the room with a victim carpet, so giving them a look at the files is a definite no-no. Okay, I'm sorry to have put you in a difficult position. But fuck that, this is Mervyn fucking Stone here. His wish is my command. I'm going to read another bit here as well, because I just like Mick so much. We're going to find it. You have to talk amongst yourselves.
Have you ever heard of Saucy Jack and the Space Pistols?
We didn't take out to him, he was trying to find something.
Musical.
Yeah, I've heard about that, yeah. These books. Okay. Oh, sorry, I just want to get this. I just really want to get this.
Just going into 4 o'clock.
Oh no, I want to get this one. Oh, okay, here it is. This is Mick again. I was just wondering if there are any developments with the Marcus Spicer murder. He's still dead. Thank you for that. I was talking about the investigation. Do you have any leads? Oh, we think we've definitely got our murderer. Really? Oh yeah, God is still our top suspect. We have attempted to contact the gentleman in question, but he seems to have made himself scarce. His next of kin seem pretty hard to get hold of as well. It's all very suspicious. Oh, I can see you lot have been having a lot of fun down the station. We have had some information about his movements. Apparently, he's recently moved in mysterious ways. Combine that with the fact he's already got forward with murder, manslaughter, and wholesale destruction of property, and the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. Mervyn was trying to look anywhere but in the direction of Mick's naked bottom. Their latest rendezvous was not in a motorway cafe. Mick's head was close to Mervyn's, but while Mervyn was sitting in a chair, Mick was leaning across a table with her trousers round her ankles. A large man with a drooping moustache and a spider's web on his cheek was crouched between her buttocks, staring intently at her bum and emitting a low buzzing noise.
So innocent.
So you got to see Mr. Godmother himself? Fuck, I'm impressed, said Mick, not sounding impressed at all. Yes, said Mervyn. Amazing, but then that's you. You're amazing. You are Mervyn fucking Stone. Thanks. What did he say? Not a lot. He was a bit odd, as you might expect. Unctuous, superior, smug. Sounds like a killer to me. It's always the smug ones. I'm not sure he seemed to want me to think that he did kill Marcus, or at least his God had a hand in it. I really don't know if he was capable or not. He seemed pretty fanatical. I know the type. They can do pretty strange things. How's your buttock? It's fine. I didn't hurt you, did I? Nah. He's not hurting you either? Yeah, he is, but I like pain. I used to draw pictures on my arm with a compass when I was bored at school. How is he doing? Mervyn allowed himself a quick glance at what was happening on the other side of the table. A quick glance was all he was prepared to make. How are you doing? The hairy man gave a cheery wink. I've just started on the S. Mervyn turned to Mick as if translating. He's just started on the S. Brilliant. Mick and Mervyn were in a tattoo parlour in Soho. The interior was intimidating. Like any tattoo parlour, pictures of skeletons, snakes, motorbikes and naked women decorated the walls. Sometimes individually, sometimes in an exotic combination of two or more. One picture was of a flaming skeleton riding a flaming motorbike out of hell, with a naked woman riding a pillion holding a snake. Mervyn, being well into middle age, immediately wondered how much motorcycle insurance the skeleton would have to pay on his bike. Certainly quite a lot. Premiums must be huge. He couldn't just take out third-party fire and theft, Mervyn mused, on account of his bike being on fire already. It wouldn't help the premiums if the naked lady refuses to wear a crash helmet. If she did, she wouldn't be naked, I suppose. That's great, thanks, Judas. The tattooist had finished inscribing Mervyn's autograph on Mick's bottom and supplied a mirror for Mick to inspect it. Mervyn looked at it out of the corner of his eye. Judas had stenciled over Mervyn's original signature in a fetching navy blue. Are you sure you want my autograph on your buttock? If I'm not sure, then it's a bit fucking late. Judas just has to put your phone number under it so they know who to call if I get killed in the line of duty. What? Joke. A bandage was applied and Mick pulled over trousers. There, your name is on my body. Now you own me. Right, so shall we go somewhere and talk about the burglary? Not yet. Take your shirt off, Mervyn Stone. You are joking. No. I thought you were joking. I wasn't. Judas pointed a stubby figure to the back of the shop. If you can just hang your shirt on the chair and stand next to that wall, that would be great. And pick up that big sword. Mervyn slouched miserably to the wall and untucked his shirt. He slowly undid the buttons with the enthusiasm of a 50-year-old stripper trapped in a cheap Soho nightclub at 3 in the morning. I'm not sure about this. Mick shrugged. This is important. We had a deal. I tell you about the burglary at the Spicer House. You get your top off and hold that sword up. Mervyn took his shirt off and shielded his nipples with his left arm, pressing tightly and giving his emerging cleavage a bit too much definition. He picked up the exotic bejewelled sword from where it was leaning against the wall and held it half-heartedly. Okay? Could you look a bit more aggressive? Not really, I've tried aggressive in the past and I always look constipated. Okay, could you give out a cry? Give me 10 more minutes and I'll burst into tears. Judas picked up a camera and started taking photos, prodding Mervyn to a variety of almost aggressive poses. Meanwhile, Mick was dipping into a briefcase and pulling out a yellow cardboard file. So the burglary happened 8 weeks ago. Mervyn flicked his eyes across to Judas, who was happily snapping away. Are you sure you want to discuss this here? He asked. Judas is very discreet. Judas nodded. I have to be. You wouldn't believe what the stars say when they're getting Chinese dragons burnt onto their boob. Other than ow. Nice one, I like you, Mervyn. Is that really your name, Judas? It is now. It's an interesting name. Well, it sort of chose me, you know. I got a Judas Priest tattoo, and the twat spelt it wrong. I got Judas Priest with 2 S's. So to save myself any grief and such like ridicule, I changed my name from Bernard Brooke to Judas Priest. With one stroke, it went from embarrassing to cool. You're a genius, Judas. So, can you raise the sword a little higher? With my back, not really. Okay, I'll just skip down because this is boring stuff about the murder and the burglary. I'm done now, Mervyn, said Judas, packing his camera away. You can put your shirt on. Mervyn scrabbled to retain his dignity, diving for his shirt and struggling to put it back on. Well, the thing about Brian is I saw him enter the Godfathers building. He's not on their records as a member, I'll check that out. And Samantha refused to drink the bottles of water on the table. She asked for a different brand of water to be sent in. Yeah, she did, didn't she? Mick folded her arms and looked even grimmer than usual. Yeah, well, I've got a few suspicions. I'll see if I'm right. Mick paid Judas, and Judas handed Mervyn a card with a heart, a sword, a snarling tiger, and Snakes and Ladettes tattoo parlour on it. Thanks, said Mervyn. You will let me know how it turns out? Judas grinned, stretching the cobweb on his cheek. Well, it's Mick. It's Mick. I'll have to show you. It will be on our body, you know. It will be on her body, you know. Mervyn cast a furtive glance at Mick. Yes, whereabouts exactly? I'll show you, she said. You see this dragon? She suddenly undid her belt and yanked down her trousers again. Mervyn was completely unprepared for that. His eyeballs dived for a cover and peered at the picture from behind the relative safety of half-closed eyelids. A huge angry dragon crawled across Mick's torso. The front claws extended down her hips. The tail curled upwards until it wrapped around her left breast. Her belly button was disguised as a lizard-like ear on the side of its head. The head itself was on her abdomen, partially obscured by the thin elastic of her knickers, and Nick obligingly yanked it aside to show him the rest. This time, Mervyn closed his eyes completely, but not before he realised what the tattooist had used to represent the dragon's reptilian mouth. You'll be down here on the inner thigh, pointing your sword at my dragon's salivating maw. Well, are we done, or we got any questions?
Well, we can.
Anyway, we've got time.
We've got about 4:05, so we can probably give another 10 minutes unless we run out of questions.
Anyone happy to carry on? Any other questions about anything? Dead Ringers, Private Eye, yeah?
Which player do you think represents Dead Ringers as strongest and Dead Ringers as weakest?
I don't think of it in terms of those. I fully understand how people like the radio series more. I fully understand that, but for me, writing the television was easier and more pleasurable because writing the radio series was quite lonely. I was there with a bloke in my writing partner in a room, and we wrote it in 48 hours. With Dead Ringers TV, you liaise props people, costume people, script people, so it was more of a fun team effort. So it was a much more pleasurable experience. But having said that, I love writing radio. I love writing the mechanics of radio. I love the things you can do in radio and have characters turn up from nowhere without the audience expecting it. I love that Goon show ethos. So I can't say which of it's good or which, there's episodes I just cheerfully not listen to again, as I said, and there are a lot of those in the radio series where we're just knocking stuff out quite quickly. There's just episodes I think that are really, really strong, and then they're both in radio and TV. So I don't really think there's a period where we were. So I thought series 6 of Dead Ringers TV was sort of a bit weak, and I thought series 7 was much stronger, and I'm glad we went out on a high, and it was sad that it was very strong when it finished, but I thought series 7 was a good series. I like the producer who worked on it, he was very good. He's the producer who's currently working on John Corso's current show. I thought that was a very strong series. I thought for the TV, I thought we got better as we went along. The first series was adapting radio sketches for television. Good sketches, but they always start off as radio sketches. With series 2, we really rolled up our sleeves, my writing partner and I, and really tried to think visually and really tried to gear. As I said, I always loved writing for the medium, and after series 1, we really started writing for the medium. There was a sketch with Dr. David Starkey. Was it David? Yeah, it was David Starkey and another historian fighting in a field, and we just spent ages thinking of visual gags with them fighting in the field and having clapperboard people using shields and boom mic people using spears and fighting each other and making it look like a reconstruction of a historical battle. We loved that so much, and we loved doing the visuals. Yes, I love visual jokes all the time. I'm thinking off the top of my head. The Andrew arms were my idea, to give Andrew these incredible arms on things like that, so he can just do that. And a lot of the audience we found just responded very well to visual stuff. There were very odd radio shows we've had where the audience only seemed to laugh at visual jokes. So you realise that for 10 seconds in, they're only laughing when the cast are pulling faces and doing little dance. So you can see the cast frantically trying to mug behind the microphone because they're not actually laughing at verbal jokes. This is a radio audience who've come to see a radio show who are only laughing at visual jokes. So I don't have an easy answer for you. They're not series 1 of the television series is not my favourite. After that, it got on an upward spike, and I was very pleased with a lot of stuff.
Was there a reason why the DVDs never came?
I think that was BBC bloody mindedness, because we said we'd like a DVD thing, and they said that topical DVDs don't sell. And we said, you haven't really tried, have you? They said, no, they don't sell. We're just going to do a bunch of clips. We said, no, put out the full series and put out the pilot as well. And I think in revenge, they put it out with no extras, they put it out with a shitty cover, and they put it out on the quiet so they could actually prove themselves right and say, see, didn't sell. I think actually we were a victim of our own success because there were so many people in the BBC who were so biased towards the radio series they didn't like to see it as a TV series. Because they actually released the television series on audio. Series 2 didn't appear on DVD, but it appeared on audio. Because I think people within the BBC only think it should have been a radio series, and they tried to keep it that way. I seriously think that. So I think that's why it didn't manifest, because there was a culture in the BBC that said that topical stuff doesn't sell, and we will make that self-fulfilling prophecy. We'll prove ourselves right by not giving it any kind of push. That's my honest opinion, and you can quote me on that.
Anyone have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, you've talked about working with other people and writing with other people. Anyone in particular you'd like to write?
It's difficult actually because Tom and I have been writing for 12 years together now, and it's quite easy. We both have our strengths in our relationship. I've tried to write with other writers. I've tried to write with Rob Shipman. I've tried to write with Johnny Morris, and we've had a lot of laughs and we had a lot of fun, but it has fizzled away to nothing. I think I am pretty much a solo writer apart from being with Tom, because I think what we do on Private Eye and on other topical shows, it just takes two to do it, because it's really difficult. It's really difficult discipline to get those gags done on time and get them in the magazine or get them on the television, and it's that uniquely hard thing. And sitcom writing too is a uniquely hard thing, so I like doing that with Tom. Anything else? I always like being a team player. I love to go into the studios. I don't like to, I like to make points. I try not to be too interfering. And I loved being in the studio preparing the Fiscom Paradox and making my little comments to my good lady about you're doing that wrong, and telling the producer what for. I was still alive. No, she said. It was just. I whispered to John Ainsworth, I said, because you gave me to do that, I think she played it slightly. And then she'd get a go at me later on in the day, because you're not saying anything, you're not saying anything. I mean, you're not actually taking opinion. The producer's telling me to do things, and you've got me to do that take again. Why are you doing this? I told you to tell you to do that take again. Okay? I just didn't tell you direct over the. I'm not having a domestic in front of the staff.
So, you got the telephone call from Cardiff. What would your initial reaction be?
I would do
to do the new series.
I'd be delighted to do it. I'd say I'm a jobbing writer. I don't let the idea that I'm writing Doctor Who, I'm not writing Doctor Who rule my world, but if I got a call, yeah, fantastic. I'd love to do. It'd be a new discipline. I love writing a discipline, 45 minutes. Do something really good.
Have you got an idea already for it? It's all even speculating on it.
Oh, crumbs. No. I always thought that I could rewrite some of the big finishes, like do Jubilee and Dalek. I could probably rewrite Perry and the Fiscon to do a story, show that idea in a new light. I'm not going to tell you what the premise of the story is, but the premise of Perry and the Fiscon Paradox is very new series in its delivery. So I thought that'd be fun to do in 45 minutes with Matt Smith and Karen Gillan. But I'm not saying I'll just rewrite any of my own shit. I'm not saying that, but it has crossed my mind when they've done Human Nature and Jubilee and they've adapted stories. I say, well, would they adapt this? I think they might. I think that would be good. But it would be a completely different story, a completely different premise, because you say, you just take the kernel of the idea and move it across. Like the idea of who killed the princess in the tower. I could probably take that idea across and make that into quite a fun 45 minutes. But it would be completely different. The villain might be different. There would be no kind of, the master wouldn't be in it. I'd be delighted to write for, and again I would tailor it very specifically towards, Matt and Karen. Just like I did, I haven't written much new series stuff. I just did the comic strip for the magazine, and then I tailored it specifically to David Tennant and Billy Piper and Camille, and Noel. So I'd be interested to know what I come up with.
So you'll be stuck halfway through if they change the companion?
No. That's the measure of a writer. I said the Kingmaker could quite be good as a Colin Baker story, and Gary said I'd like it as Peter with Perry and Ehrman. So I'd already pitched the idea, and as anyone knows, the idea that Perry and Ehrman are integral to that story. They have a role in that story, and that story wouldn't have gone that way without them. So I completely rethought it once he said Peter, Nicola, and Caroline. So, no, absolutely, I can completely rejig and refocus and fold everything around. It would have been a completely different story if it was Colin in India or Colin and Maggie. But the nature of the story, the serendipitous nature of the story, meant that the Doctor had to be travelling with two young companions, which made the Kingmaker work really well. But as I say, the idea I pitched before. So you develop the idea, you shape it, you nibble it, you fold it. Sketch writing helps with that, because you can just go, oh well, this idea is going in a different direction, and you can work quickly on keeping hold of the idea and steering it into another direction. Yes.
If you could go back and write for any series, what would you pick?
Oh goodness. What, any Doctor Who series?
No, any series. If you could go back in time and write for anything, what would it be?
Ooh, right. Oh, I don't know. Let me think. There are series that I would admire that I probably wouldn't need me. I'd probably like to.
No, but this is fantasy.
Well, maybe I'd like to adapt House of Cards. Because they did such a good job of adapting it. I'd love to have been that person that adapted it. It would have been such an exciting thing to do. Blake 7 would have been fun, because it does seem a bit chaotic and things seem to go nowhere. It would have been fun to it seemed like it was everything. Blake 7 was fantastic with it. All seemed first draft. It seemed like character arcs just went nowhere. Sulin's character went nowhere. I'd have been interested to actually write an episode and address a few things like fans do. Like we're talking about fans addressing the shortcomings of Doctor Who. It'd be good to write a story about maybe Sulin and actually giving her a character rather than just not having a character, and just building in this, because Blake 7 was this really really seat your pants thriller that should really last for the whole of the 4 episodes. These kind of Star Trek-y episodes in the middle didn't seem to work for me. I would have cut those out, and I think you can do that. If you see Dexter, you can carry 4, 5 series about one man who happens to be a serial killer, and you can keep that plot bubbling along. I'd like to see the Blake 7 plot brought forward without these digressions into artifacts found on old spaceships and bits of nonsense like that. I'd like to see a 4-series thriller like The West Wing. I'd like, I think I'd like to be the script editor on Blake 7. That would have been fun. Or work with Chris Bouch to really, tighten things up a bit. Because that appeals to my script editor brain.
Good job, Big Finish got Blake 7 there then.
But being a writer, I've not actually asked. It's not. I'm not pitching to write Blake 7 if they ask.
Get on the internet.
Well, you do them favours, so maybe they can reciprocate.
I think they've done me enough by bringing Mervyn out. I mean, it's very brave of them because they're just known for audios, and they wanted to go into books. And I said, I'm writing this series of 3 books. And they go, okay. And I've got everything I wanted from Big Finish because they've been so marvellous to work with. I wouldn't have got the support. And people who get it, a cover like this takes time and effort, and people who get the idea. And Alex was fantastic with the covers, and I had Zana doing the editing, and it was fantastic. With Perry and the Biscon Paradox, I said, well, I see this as 2 discs. And they go, what? Well, I was under the impression it had to be 2 discs, didn't it? Oh, we'll have a think. And they went away, and they go, yes, 2 discs. And I go, wouldn't we create Colin Baker as the guest? And they go, what? And they go, well, wouldn't it, really? No, we don't think that. Well, could you ask Nick, please? Okay. And Nick says yes, it's all right, that's fine. So it's like I got everything I wanted with Perry and the Biscon Paradox. So, and I don't think without Big Finish saying yes and being nice and accommodating needs to the writer that it would be as good as it was. So fair play to them and hurrah, and they've done so many favours for me. I think we're about even.
Well, if nobody else has got anything, it's about 10 past 4, in fact it's coming up to 20 past now. I think, thank you, Nev, for everything.
That's
It's been
great.
a fantastic convention.
It's been great fun.
You've been a brilliant guest.
Well, thank you.
You've kept all these people hanging on. Thank you very much.